Good afternoon, AQA GCSE science students. Now this session is for you if you are doing separate sciences, so biology, chemistry and physics, and foundation tier. So if you're doing higher tier, that one starts at 5 o'clock, so in an hour's time. If you are doing trilogy, so combined science, I've already done those. So go and check out the other videos on the channel. So if you are here, say hi in the chat, let me know you are here. And obviously if you've got any questions as we go through, then just pop those in the chat and I will do my utmost to answer them. Now, why are we here today? We are here today because myself, Sidekick is something I've developed over the last year or so to help students do better in science exams and be more prepared for science exams whilst actually using less time to revise, okay? So I'm here to help. That's what I'm here to do, okay? Now, when you're revising, there are two areas in which you need to focus your time, okay? Now, obviously, you've got so many other subjects, and within science, there are 3 subjects alone. So you need to revise efficiently, and there's 2 ways to do that. Number 1, what are the most common topics and types of question that come up in the exam? So you can spend more time on those, and of course, they're going to pay back because obviously you're revising the most common topics. The other thing is what you're not very good at, okay? And how do you find out what you're not very good at and then practice that some more to get good at those things? So that's why we're here today, to look at those 2 things. What are the things that come up most often, and how can Sidekick actually help you build your confidence in exams and tell you exactly what topics you need to work on personally, okay? So we're going to get straight into it. These are not predictions. We're using information based on the last 5 years worth of papers from 2018 to 2022, or 2018 to 2022. So 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. 5 years. 23 is not included, but that's purely because that information is not released to the public yet, okay? Those exams happened last year. The exam board AQA don't release them until after these exams, so we're not allowed to kind of like show any information based on those papers. But what we have got is 5 years worth of information, which is really reliable. Now, I'm going to show you a lot of information, okay? Now, I don't want this to panic you in any way or let it overface you. I'm going to talk you through what it is just on the first slide, but what I've done is I've come up with 5 key things that you need to do for each of the 6 exams, so you can focus your efforts on those, and then partway through we'll talk about what Sidekick can do to help you figure out exactly what topics and things that you're not very good at, okay? So, we're going to just dive straight in, and we're going to start with biology, okay? So let me just talk you through what this is. This is a lot of information, okay? Now, this information is based on my analysis. As I've built Sidekick, I've analyzed all the papers. I know what topic it is, I know what type of question it is, and so on and so forth. So on the left-hand side here, we've got all the topics that come up in paper 1 for you in Foundation Separate Sciences. This is the total number of marks that have been attributed to each of those topics over the 5 years, okay? This is the number of times it's been in the paper, this topic, okay? And you can see so many of them are really common, including this one down here. And then this is the average number of marks for that topic in that paper. So this one appears 24 marks on average on animals, tissues, organs, and organ systems. It could be 30. It could be 10, but the average is 24. And that's very much, well, that's a quarter of the paper right there, isn't it? Because there's 100 marks in your paper. That's a quarter of your paper, okay? And lastly, what I've got is an importance factor. That is the total number of marks multiplied by the number of appearances. So the more marks there are attributed to it, the more often it comes up, the more important that topic is. So you can see here, by far and away, these top 2 are the most common, the most important topics for you to revise ready for your biology paper 1. But like I said, I've done the hard work with this data. You can come back and watch this video and look at this data some more yourself. That's absolutely fine. But I've saved some time here, and I'm not going to go through all the data and all of these. It's not going to be dead boring. I'm just going to highlight the most important things based on my experience and the data. The last thing I'll say is that at Sidekick, what we do is we split these different the questions into different types. You've got your recall. Now your recall is your classic revision. Remember the name of this. How does this work? Tell me this story. Describe this. Label that. And that's just purely things that you need to recall. How you revise that is the way that we see classic revision, using mind maps, rewriting your notes, using flashcards, using the textbook, which are great for these questions. However, you'll also notice there's a lot of what I call, or what we call, sidekick deduction questions. That's where you need to have a bit of knowledge, but you're working with information in the question that you've never seen before. So you need to deduce the answer, okay? Hence why they're called deduction questions. The only way to revise for these, and you can see there's a big chunk of the marks in deduction here, and it gets greater in chemistry and physics. The only way to get better at these is by practicing questions, okay? And be brave, practice questions, and Sidekick can help you do that. Calculations speak for themselves. Obviously, you're going to have to put some numbers into your calculators. And then lastly, draw plot is where they basically just give you some information and you need to plot a graph. That's all it is. It's a skill in itself. It's easy marks. So those are the 4 different types of question that come up. And you can see there's differences between each of these different topics, okay? So what is the, if you got any questions, by the way, of course, just pop those in the chat. Now, what are the top 3 things that we can learn from this information? I've pulled these out to make it easy for you, okay? The first one, learn the names and functions of your cells, tissues, and organs. Why? Because this. So many marks attributed to recalling tissues, organs, and organ systems. And you know what? It's very closely linked to cell structure as well. So between those two, you've got a lot to learn. Make sure you know that because it's going to be in your exam somewhere. 100%, okay? It's going to be in your exam. So that's 1. 2, microscope calculations. Why do I say that? That, my friends, is what this is. Lots of marks for calculations in cell structure. So know how to calculate your different magnifications, okay, but using the eyepiece lens and the object lens. Also changes in units between micrometers and millimeters and things like that. Be good at those. And again, the only way to do that is by practicing questions, okay? You're not going to get better at that by reading about it in a textbook, all right? That's the second one. And then last one, know your communicable diseases. So diseases that can be spread. In other words, both human and plant. I say that because there's lots of recall there for communicable diseases. It could be about HIV, it could be about malaria, and so on and so forth. But also, where are we? Oops, excuse me. Plant disease, okay? 15 marks on that. So human and plant disease, very, very important. I'm also going to give an honorable mention to this, okay? So transporting cells and respiration. Very often they come together, these things, and we do a better job of highlighting these. And again, worth quite a few marks, okay? On average, 13 and 9 marks per paper. That's not to be sniffed at, is it, okay? So transporting cells and respiration often go hand in hand, maybe active transport or something like that, okay? So those are the top topics I'd recommend for biology paper 1. For the practicals, bacterial growth. The bacterial growth one, if I can just use, okay, this is where you get your Petri dishes and you kind of have the circles of paper with different antibiotics in, and you have to kind of measure the size of the circles and so on and so forth. That's a very, very common practical. So make sure you're familiar with that one. Again, practicing past paper questions. And then lastly, or secondly, I should say, photosynthesis and light intensity. It's the good old one with the pondweed and the fact that you need to move the light further away and closer. And how many bubbles of carbon dioxide get produced, of oxygen get produced when they're photosynthesizing. That one, okay? So they're your 2 biggest practicals. Now, 2 things. Number 1, on practicals, and this is for all practicals, make sure you know the different types of variable, or be able to work out what the variables are in that particular experiment you're looking at. So what's the independent variable? What's the dependent variable? What's the control variables, okay? The other thing that they ask a lot with all practicals is how do you improve A, the accuracy of the experiment, and B, the reliability or repeatability of the experiment, okay? It's about obviously multiple readings, taking averages, and so on and so forth. So that's really important right across the board. Word to the wise, what I'm not saying here is just revise these ones at the top, okay? Obviously the most important are in dark green, the second most important are in light green. I think you do need to kind of spread yourself across these topics, okay? But obviously in terms of saving time, in terms of where you need to put that little bit of extra effort in, this is, excuse me, really, really useful, okay, with these top topics to help you think, right, where are my priorities in terms of revision? And here we can see that most of these top ones are in every single year, okay? Respiration only got missed out once in the exams that we've looked at, okay? So they're your top ones to look at for biology paper 1. Now we're going to rattle on through and do the rest of these. Now we're going to look at biology paper 2 and then some chemistry. So that's biology paper 1 in a nutshell. Now biology paper 2, a few more topics to look at in this one, so there's a few more green boxes, but you can see here again that in terms of importance factor, these 4 can stand head and shoulders above the rest, especially the top 2 here, okay, which is reproduction and hormonal coordination in humans. So they often are very linked, okay? So what I've done here is, my general advice is recall. Practice your recall, learn everything you need to learn for the top 4 topics here, okay? The top 4 topics, and maybe even like this one as well. These top 4 topics, do apologize. Because there are so many marks attributed to these for recall and deduction. Like I said, these are the marks that your classic revision is going to get you using mind maps and flashcards and so on and so forth. These are the marks that you're going to get by practicing questions, okay? And you can see they're very evenly matched, all right, in these exams. So past paper questions are fundamental if you're going to do well in your exams, okay? The next thing, practice past paper questions working with data. There's a lot more here. If I just flick back, you can see like the deduction questions here, generally speaking, are lower in paper 1 than in paper 2. You got much more of these deduction questions. So practicing lots of paper 2s and working with the information that they give you, especially on things like effect on the on ecosystems. Okay, so how human interactions with ecosystems affect them, and of course reproduction. Okay, so working with information about reproduction. And hormonal coordination in humans. So a lot of that comes from practicals, and I'll talk to you about that in a sec. But like I said, past paper questions, really important for all, but especially biology paper 2. Now the last one, don't neglect your plant hormones, is my other one, okay? Because that here, you can see it's not in the top 20, and it was only 1 year that it wasn't in, but 9 marks on average per exam. You know, that's worth knowing, okay? So know your auxins, know your tropisms and so on and so forth. Why? Because that's where they come in, is the practicals down here. So the tropism one, whereby, you know, you've got some shoots growing like this, and then maybe you've got light coming from one side and they grow towards the light, making measurements, all right? And, you know, maybe they've got light all around or in no light whatsoever. So that practical there comes up a lot. So make sure that you're ready to answer questions on that one. And then lastly for paper 2, this is huge, populations and quadrats, okay? Biologists love a quadrat, you know, counting the number of daisies in a field and so on and so forth. And you can see that organization in ecosystems and biodiversity and stuff like that, you know, these marks, okay, calculations and these deduction questions are all based around practicals. So know your quadrats, know the method of how you're supposed to put quadrats down and achieve randomness and calculating averages, calculating areas, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Now, speaking of calculations, you'll notice that in biology, there are very few calculations really, apart from, you know, all these microscope questions here. Most of it is recall and deduction for biology, okay? So you need to change the way you revise for the 3 different subjects, all right? So that's biology paper 1 and biology paper 2, okay? Actually, the other thing I should mention, grade boundaries, okay? These are the average marks over the last few years. Everyone's worried about the grade boundaries this year. Don't be. You're in competition with everybody else doing the exam, not a grade boundary, okay? You just got to be better than everybody else. That's how you get the top grades in exams, okay? So don't pay too much attention to grade boundaries. Focus on your game and focus on the things that you're good at, and focus on the things that you're not good at to improve on them. Now, chemistry. Look at this. There are lots of topics in chemistry, okay? And the thing is, what I will say is that there is a much more even spread of topics in chemistry. You can see that all bar one topic has been in at least 4 of these 5 papers. So you do need to spread yourself more thinly in chemistry across the different topics, okay? But the other thing with chemistry compared to biology as well is you've got a lot more deduction questions and a lot more calculation questions. So we're going away from the classic revision here of recall and using flashcards and notes and stuff like that, and more towards practicing questions, okay? And that's what's going to get you to improve in these areas in chemistry. But the top 3 things here in chem are recall, especially the top 3 topics. Now that's important. Let's zoom in on those. Atomic structure, you've got to be able to name the different parts of an atom, be able to work out the number of protons and electrons and neutrons and stuff like that. The other one, reactions of acids. There's lots of equations to be able to remember here, okay? What's acting as an acid, what's acting as a base, what's the name of the salt that you make. So knowing your equations for reactions of acids is massively important. And lastly, exo and endothermic reactions, okay? Being able to, being able to figure out what's an endothermic reaction, what's an exothermic reaction, looking at temperature changes and stuff like that, okay? So there's a lot to learn in those top 3. So in terms of classic revision, that's where you should be focusing your efforts, on those top 3 topics there. But of course, don't neglect the other ones. I'm just saying that these are the most common ones. Next up, equations, yield, and percentage atom economy. That's where most of your equations lie, okay? So your calculations lie. So being able to write equations, so it's here, okay? And here, and here, okay? So your calculations in the main for chemistry paper 1 are going to lie in atomic structure. So calculating the number of neutrons, for example, balancing equations, okay, as part of the calculations, and percentage yield and atom economy. It is in every single year. So if you be good at that, and it's an easy couple of marks for you to get. On average, there are 4 marks per paper for it. So there's going to be 2 marks for a yield calculation, 2 marks for an atom economy question. They appear all the time. Now, lastly, reactivity and exo and endothermic reactions. Let's just get rid of this. Now, reactivity series, where are we? Reactivity of metals and exo and endothermic reactions. Very often linked together, okay? So you've got between them a load of marks, okay? And you'll see by practicing questions that these 2 things are linked quite a lot, okay? So there's less to remember here for reactivity of metals, but you do need to be able to work things out and do some calculations with it, okay? So those 2 things are really, really closely linked together. The other thing I mentioned about paper 1, an honorable mention, is the periodic table, okay? Because there's always, again, a lot of marks attributed to that. Be able to know your way around the periodic table in terms of atomic structure. The number of electrons in the outer shell is the group. The number of shells is the period, and so on and so forth. And don't forget those classic questions that come up about Mendeleev. The other honorable mention, electrolysis. Every single year, average number of marks is 10 for electrolysis. So aluminium is a really, really common one. Using electrolysis to extract aluminium, it's one of the most common questions that comes up every single year. So just watch out for that. Now, in terms of practicals, last couple of things. Preparation of a soluble salt. That is where you take your copper oxide, you react it with an excess of copper oxide with sulfuric acid, stir it around, it goes blue, you end up with bits in the bottom of unreacted copper oxide, and you filter it, and then you evaporate the water and get that one. Okay, so that one there, preparation of a soluble salt. And then lastly, measuring the temperature change of a reaction is the other massively common practical that you need to be able to get your head around, okay? So that's chemistry paper 1. I know I'm flying through, guys, but I don't want to waste your time. Now, paper 2. Again, 2 topics that stand head and shoulders above the rest: rate of reaction and using the Earth's resources and obtaining potable water. Okay, so drinking water, essentially. The first one, Learn potable water and carbon compounds. What I mean by that is a look at all these marks, okay? On average, 11 and 8 marks attributed to just remembering those different methods of getting drinking water from different sources. They may ask you to just recall it and describe how you get drinking water from wastewater or spring water or seawater. They may ask you to compare them, okay? Now, carbon compounds and fuels as feedstock, I mean, that's basically the fractional distillation, okay, asking you how that works, naming the different parts of the different fractions maybe of the fractional distillation, listing, remembering what the different ones are used for. So there's lots of things to revise there classically. However, when it comes to rates on average is 14 marks per paper, on average, okay? And remember, in chemistry, there is a bigger spread. You can see again, all these topics are in at least 4 of the 5 papers. So you do need to spread yourself more thinly in chemistry. But this one, the deduction and calculation questions all stem from practicals, okay? So practice the rate questions and calculations that are in the past papers, guys, okay? And again, Sidekick is there to help you do that. Now, lastly, generic past paper practice. The reason I've put that in there is because, look, as I mentioned, all of these topics are in most of the time, okay? It might only be a few marks for these ones, but they all add up. Of course, these top ones carry the most marks, but these ones down here are still going to help you obtain that top grade. Now, are you going to spend time just revising all of these? No, okay? Yes, there are some more important topics than others, but what is also important, of course, guys, is improving what you're not good at. And how do you know what you're not good at? How do you know what to revise next? It's kind of like, no, it's just a gut feeling. I'll see what I feel like next, right? I mean, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But are you going to be improving the areas that you need to improve on? Maybe you like rate of reaction and you just revise that loads because you like it. Well, that's great. You're going to get all those marks, but there's so many other marks that you're going to miss out on. So you need to be smart about it. Now, in terms of the practicals, rates. It's there again, okay? So rates of reaction, the practicals are in every single year. So make sure you practice those questions, folks. And the other one that's very, very common is, identification of common gases and where's the other one? Oh, there you go. Identification of ions by chemical and spectroscopic means. That's basically testing for ions. So your flame tests and your precipitate tests and things like that, that comes up a lot as well, okay? And you can see this one up here, chemical analysis and identification of ions in every single year. They don't carry a lot of marks, but the fact remains they're going to be in there. So you may as well learn them, and then it's easy money, right? It's easy marks. So knowing what to do, okay, is important. All right, knowing what to revise is massively important. Like I said, this is a guide and in terms of where you should maybe focus some of your efforts when it comes to your revision for these different papers. Now, that's based on past data, okay? But what about you? You're different. Everyone's different, okay? Some people are really good at calculation. Some people are really good at remembering things and vice versa. So how do you find out what you're good at and what you're not good at and where to improve, okay? And in a situation like chemistry, whereby there are so many topics to kind of get your head around, you just need to do past papers. You need to practice those questions, because otherwise, if you don't do a past paper before doing the exam, that's mad, okay? That's like saying, oh, I'm going to enter you into a gymnastics competition in June. And all you've done until the day before the gymnastics competition is just watch YouTube videos and read about gymnastics. You've got to have a go, right? You've got to have a go. And that's what Sidekick is here to help you do, okay? To give you the confidence. Because you don't feel ready, or you don't want to waste the past paper. I don't know. There's lots of different reasons why people don't do them. But in order to get these deduction questions, which are important right across the board, then you need to practice questions, guys. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about Sidekick with you and how it can help you. And then we'll do the physics, okay? So over on Sidekick, which is here, when you sign up once. And that's it. Okay, speak to your parents. Obviously, get the card holder's permission. It's 25 quid. It's just one payment until the end of the year. Okay, that's it. Okay, you can use it as much as you like. When you sign up either because you're doing trilogy or separate science. Then you select your tier, so it's either foundation or higher, and then you'll get access to Sidekick. So in there, okay, you'll get access to all the papers. You can just get access to all the exam papers here without signing into Sidekick, to be fair. But there's two things it can help you do. One is help you with exams, okay? Now, if you're sat doing a past paper, and let me just come off this for a second. If you're sat doing a past paper and you get stuck on a question, that right now there's only one or two options. One, look at the answer. All right, that's not that helpful, especially the mark schemes. They suck, right? The mark schemes do not help you. And you can't do a calculation. It just gives you the answer. You're like, well, how did you get that? Or B, you just skip it, okay? Neither of which helps you. Sidekick is here to kind of bridge that gap and build your confidence in doing these questions, okay? So, excuse me. So what you do when you Sidekick a paper is you pick a paper. I'm on separate science higher, but when you sign up, it'll be separate science foundation, and you just pick a paper. So let's do a chemistry one. Okay, so chemistry paper 121. You can filter at the top here as well, and what that'll do is it'll bring you to here. Now you can download the paper. You can from here, so you can print it off and have a go at it. But this will be here when you're doing your exams, okay? So you set a timer, you start doing your past paper, and you're practicing, okay? And then you come across a question like, oh, I'm not really sure about that. I don't know the answer. I don't know how to work this out. Like, where is the answer in this question? With the deduction questions, the answers are often in the information you've got, and you get stuck. So this is a recall question. So all you need to do on question 1.1, if you get stuck on it, show the clue, okay? So that's it. That is what it does, okay? So in a recall question, it'll just give you a little clue, a little hint, okay? Like so. If you want to see the answer, that's it, okay? You can see the answer as well. But I don't recommend that because here it's trying to go, what is it? Just think about it for a second, and it can help you recall those things. In terms of, let's find a deduction question. There you go. So reactivity of metals, show the clue. So we need to evaluate something here for 4 marks. How do you build that sort of question? How do you answer that question and organize your answer? So it tells you what to do. Make a comment on each of these following things. Which method are more expensive or cheapest to use? Which methods produce another solid? So obviously it relates directly to a question which you've got on a paper in front of you. But as you work through, you can use this as much or as little as you like. But any questions you get stuck on, it's basically like a tutor just popping up to help you, okay, and giving you guidance on how to answer the question. Because I wrote these thinking, right, if a student was sat next to me and I was tutoring them and they were stuck on that question, what would I say? And this is what I'd say. So this is the my tutoring, if you like. So when you finish your question, that's the first part of it, to build your confidence and get you better at doing exams. The second bit is to mark the paper, okay? So if we go ahead, we can go straight from here, or we can go back to here and just select a paper to mark. So maybe you didn't use Sidekick to do the paper, that's fine. You can just go ahead here and select it, but you can go ahead and just mark this paper. So what it'll do, it'll give you the answer straight away. And if, in these calculation questions and stuff, you can see the clue, and that shows you how we got to the answer, okay? So very often, if the mark scheme kind of like, well, that's the answer, but why? Then you can click the clue and see it. So all you need to do is just look at your paper and go, yeah, I got that mark. Yeah, I got that mark. Okay, yeah, I drew that, so I got that mark. Or I didn't get that one. So you just basically go through and put your marks in for each of the questions, okay? And it takes you, I don't know, like 10 minutes. But it's worth it. It's worth it because at the end, you go to your results. These are ones that I've only part done. This is the one that I've just done now, actually. But here's like a full one. So this is one I've done for biology and chemistry. You can view your results. It'll give you a grade and give you some tips on what to do next. But look at this. It gives you a breakdown of every topic that was in that paper and how many marks you got on that topic. So you can see really clearly where your strengths and your weaknesses are. Now look at this. Chemical bonds, bonding and structure and bonding. I mean, literally, I just panned on that. I mean, I specialize in chemistry, to be honest with you. I did this on purpose. But you can see that's what you'll get, okay? And you'll be able to see that. Now, if you're struggling with chemical bonds, all you need to do is click the PDF, and the PDF will pop up. and it's basically the spec, and it tells you these are the things you need to know. Okay, these are the things you need to be able to do. So as you work, you can print this off. If you're rubbish at this topic, you can go through and you can just tick these off as you go through. So it tells you what you need to know and what you need to do for every part of this topic. Okay, so it really directs you on exactly the things that you need to improve on. And at the bottom, it shows you how good you are at these recall questions, how good your memory, how good your revision. Here is your exam skills, okay, your deduction questions, and of course your calculation questions as well, and how well you did in practicals and so on and so forth. So it can give you a really clear idea as to what you need to do. Right, now I've done an exam, I can go away and do some revision on bonding and stuff, and then you know what, I'm just going to try the next exam. The other chemistry paper one, maybe from, this was 2022, just try the 2021 one, okay? And then you just get better as you go through. So every time you do a paper, you can actually see like what you need to revise next, what you need to spend your next couple of hours doing, okay? So that's Sidekick in a nutshell. If you want to join Sidekick, if you want to use Sidekick, it's not a subscription. I want to try and make this as accessible to everybody as possible. It's only 25 quid, but if you use this code, it will take 20% off for you. So it's only 20 quid and it'll last you right the way through to the exams, and it'll really help you get to grips with those different types of questions that you might be struggling with. And it's there to give you guidance when you need it and give you guidance on what to revise next. So, you know, I'm a little bit biased, but I think it's quite magical, to be honest with you. So, you know, and I'm hoping at that price, then it's at that cost. Obviously, it's up to your parents, but, you know, I would like to think that it's very much worth it. So let's do physics, shall we? Let's do physics. Again, if you've got any questions at all, pop them in the chat, or questions about Sidekick, you can go to sidekick.co.uk, SCIDE, kick, and you can use the contact form there. So let's finish this off with physics. The first thing you will notice with physics is that we have got so many calculation marks. It is unreal, okay? So there's very little, I mean, you know, there's a lot there, to be fair, but relatively speaking, unlike biology, where most of the marks were here and very, very few calculations, you know, you can see how differently you have to revise physics compared to biology, okay? So what are the top things here? Energy calculations. I mean, look at this. Energy, energy, energy. And these ones as well. Okay, so 92 marks in total. On average per paper, just energy calculations is 31 marks. That's nearly a third of the paper. That's nearly a third of the paper. So know your energy differences, your energy changes, and of course, calculating energy changes. Next up, resistance calculations, no surprise here. So current and resistance and potential difference, being able to calculate resistance in different parts of the circuit, and knowing your equations for those is going to be really, really handy. And then lastly, learn the particle model. Why? Because, why did I put this? Oh yeah, there we go, boom. Lots of information there about changes of state in the particle model. It's in every single year, on average 18 marks, okay? 8 marks. So knowing what changes happen when things melt and boil and condense and freeze, all those things, and it's easy marks if you know those, so do focus your revision on that. Now the practical side of things for paper one, measuring density, that's where they drop something in some water and look for the displacement, okay? Practical questions on that all the time. And unsurprisingly, the second one is resistance in circuits, okay? So there may be somebody testing how changing X changes the resistance or the current or the potential difference in a circuit. So do watch out for those. And again, with so much emphasis on these deduction and calculation questions, there's no substitute from just getting stuck in and doing past papers, guys. Like I said, I know Sidekick helps you with that, but this is just facts. This is literal just facts, and the reason why I built Sidekick to help students get better at these things. Now, last but not least, paper two, okay? Forces, 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 okay? Just look at the number of marks. Oop, don't want to call that number, that's weird. Look at the total number of marks for forces here and here. Okay, so that is 156 marks together, okay? On average, that is 23 plus 8, so that's 31 marks. Again, a third of your paper just on forces. So forces, forces, forces practice, guys. Know your waves and relationships. Now, what I mean by that is, of course, in electromagnetic waves here and waves in air, fluids and solids, between those, again, they have got, what's that, 19, so that's more than these forces combined, okay, on average in a paper. So that is, what's that, 38, no, that's a big fat lie, 29, 34, my maths is terrible, 34 marks on average per paper, okay? So that is why you should really focus your efforts on some waves, knowing your electromagnetic waves, like the order in which you see them, the trend in frequency and wavelength, calculating wave speed, all those things. And again, it's practice, practice, practice. And lastly, springs, just springs. They love springs, all right? What can I say? So forces and elasticity, okay, here, really, really important, okay? They come up again every single year. Notable mentions, I would also look at this, okay? So your solar system, stability of orbital motions and satellites, most of that is recall, guys. So you are going to get that from your textbooks and your notes and stuff like that. But equally, it's always worth practicing those questions. On average, 9 marks per paper, okay? But you do have some deduction and calculation questions in there as well. So it's pretty clear cut, really. Forces, waves, solar system. Now the practicals, measuring waves, that's where a lot of these marks come from, okay? So these deduction marks here for waves, a lot of those come through practical questions, so make sure you're ready for those. And then this one down here, IR radiation and materials, that is also waves, okay? So infrared radiation and materials and how they absorb infrared radiation or how they reflect infrared radiation, very, very important, okay? So those are your top things for physics paper 2. So don't forget, guys, if that was useful, drop it a like, share it with your friends, okay? Like I said, what I was here to do today is just to share with you the information that I have found whilst building Sidekick for you, okay? That information is there to help you focus your revision on the most important topics. Sidekick is there to help you focus your revision on the things that you're not so good at, and to help you build confidence when answering questions, doing past papers with the Sidekicker paper, okay? So like I said, if you use this code, it's only 20 quid and you get that access right away through to the end of your exams. If you're in year 10, then you can sign up again after that if you want. It will be another year's payment, but if you sign in with the same email address, you'll still have access to all the information that you've saved and all the papers that you've done, okay? So yeah, that's that, folks. I hope you found this useful. If you did, as I say, drop it a like, give it a share, and let people know, okay? And if you want to trial Sidekick, like I said, speak to your parents. It's only 20 quid. And that will last you right the way through your exams and help you when it comes to doing some past papers, okay? So all the very best with your exams. Do work hard. Remember, it is not the end of the world, okay? Don't put too much pressure on yourself. I would absolutely recommend that you look after yourself as well, okay? Revise hard, but relax as well. Take some time for yourself. You're no good to anybody if you burn yourself out before the exams, okay? So do look after yourself. And I will see you around, okay? So once you've done your GCSEs this year, you can find me at chemistrycoach.co.uk if you're doing A-level chemistry. But other than that, good luck with your exams. Look after yourself. Do past papers for science. And I will see you around. If you've got any questions about Sidekick, drop me a message via the contact form on the Sidekick homepage, SCIDE, so Sidekick with a C, and you'll find me and you can ask questions there. All right, hopefully you found this useful, and I will see you around, folks.